Chess is a complex intellectual game and is a hard mental activity that requires sophisticated problem solving. Essentially, invisible activities of the brain such as perception, memory, thinking, reasoning, learning, attention, and logical performances are addressed as cognitive performances. What is my point in saying all this? What does this have to do with chess training? Well, first I want to say that my channel is geared toward strong chess players who want to become chess assassins. My chess training benefits you in several ways. It does the following. It develops perspective, improves memory, deepens focus, elevates creativity, boosts planning skills, and increases self-awareness. Today, we're going to delve into the Spanish Opening, otherwise known as the Ruy Lopez. A battle is taking place in the center. In this game, Black is aggressive. Right now, the pawn threatens the knight, and the knight is forced from the f6 square. If one of your pieces are forced from its square, try to transfer it to a more effective square. This is an important concept in chess. This knight on e4 is headed to c5, where it will apply pressure to the bishop on b3. Right now, the knight is threatening to capture the bishop here on b3. Should white retreat the bishop to c2, take the pawn on d4, or gain tempo? The queen now threatens to capture the pawn on g7, which gains tempo. And after black defends the pawn, then white chooses to capture the pawn on d4 to have a strong pawn duo in the center. Take a look at the bishop on b7. That is black's best developed piece. It has a clear path to the pawn on g2. Therefore, white does not mind giving up the rook for the bishop in order to take away his opponent's best developed piece. And I'm going to show you why. For starters, black has a lot of weak light squares around his king, and white's queen is attacking the light squares. Also, by playing the pawn to d5, if black captures the rook on e6, white would just recapture with the pawn, having a pawn in the heart of black's king's side. Because the bishop has moved from the b7 square, white is able to exploit the pin of the pawn to the rook on a8. Now take a look at this position. Right now, the rook on c8 is guarded by the bishop on b7, and that's the only piece protecting that rook. However, bishop takes d5 loses. Now black is in Zugzwang. Nothing is holding the rook. The queen X-rays the rook on c8. Therefore, white makes an exchange sacrifice. So, any reply from black will lose. King takes, queen takes c8. If queen takes rook, then bishop g5 concludes. Check. Now taking it back. And she doesn't want check. Someone to stare in her soul. But if you can be now in this position, white is going to retreat the bishop to c2. Now after the retreat, black has 4 main candidates to choose from. So bishop retreat to c2. So black has pawn on c7 to c5, knight to c4, queen to c8, and knight back to b7. c5 is perhaps the most popular move. And now the game continues. Now when the position is closed and the center is blockaded with pawns, you accumulate your advantages gradually. Notice all of the squares that white is guarding because of the pawn and pieces placed all the way across the board. White is guarding those squares. Now, another key idea of having a knight on g3 is redeploying it to the e3 square via knight f1 to e3, where it will have influence on central light squares. Right now, the knight is controlling c4, d5, and f5, and even has an eye on g4. Now, when you see pieces moving, like you might see a rook move from the queen side over to the king side, back over to the queen side, then back over to the king side, etc. Now, just like you've just seen black play the rook to g7. Now, what the players are doing is they're doing what is called jockeying for position. And that's what they're doing. The players are jockeying for position. Until finally one of the players is able to come up with a plan of action. So basically, when you jockey for position, you're just saying, if you do this, I'll do that. If I do this, you'll do that. Black is willing to exchange the rook for the knight. Since the knight is on a bothersome square, or should we say, is on a vital square where it can inflict damage to black's king side. Therefore, black is willing to make an exchange sacrifice of the rook for the knight. Now remember this position, the starting position. The most common move was pawn on c7 to c5. Here, taking a look at knight b7. Step by step, one step at a time. The rook x-rays the queen on c7. For instance, the pawn on e5, if that pawn took the pawn on d4, white would recapture by playing the pawn from c3 to d4, a recapture, and this would set up a discovered attack. For example, pawn takes pawn, pawn takes pawn, and should the bishop move, then an available move for white would be pawn to d5. But taking it back, the move is pawn from c6 to c5. And the game continues. Again, trying to get black to capture so that the discovered attack could be made on the c5. But black now stops that possibility. So white sacrificed the pawn to get the bishop on e3 open and to gain space in the center. Now the B file is open. And the A file is half open because of the pawn on A4. Yet there are 3 pieces attacking Black's pawn on A4. The rook, the bishop on C2, and the rook on A1. All attack the pawn on A4. Black has only 2 pieces defending the pawn, the bishop here on D7 and the rook on A8. This is called the number of attackers versus the number of defenders. The objective of the attacker is to mount up as much pressure as he can on one of the opponent's pieces. And now both the A and the B files are open. Notice the imbalance. Black has a 2 bishop advantage, whereas white has 2 knights. Now black is getting ready to set up a tactic. The knight's move to c3 is not free. Do you see why? If knight takes c3, then bishop takes f4, wins the piece back. However, queen takes c3, queen takes c7, even trade. Now the threat is pawn from h5 to h4 because the knight is pinned to the king by the queen on e5. How does white answer this threat? Offering the trade of queens immediately. Now we have arrived at bishop versus knight endgame.